Fast, free delivery from the Home Depot makes your projects hassle-free. Forget something you need? Visit HomeDepot.com or the Home Depot app for free delivery on millions of products, including same-day and next-day options. Get delivery at the speed you need, only at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Order select in-stock items by 4 p.m., subject to availability. We have been told that we are the big boys in town.
Well, he's yapping. He's into it. I'm talking about he is like lit.
I'm trying to start preaching.
Let everybody say amen.
I can get chills a little bit thinking about what these two guys can do.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is that you are joining us. This is the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T, and we are back. I'm excited because it's been, I feel like it's been 2 or 3 months since I've been able to sit down with my fellas here. DJ Shockley, Dave Archer, I'm Derek Rackley here. We told you way back in January, after the hirings of Matt Ryan and Kevin Stefanski and Ian Cunningham, that we would be back with some of the larger news of the offseason. Well, guess what? It's draft week, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe the biggest offseason event that the National Football League has on its calendars, and it will take place this year in Pittsburgh. Starts on Thursday night with the NFL draft.
Yeah.
First of all, fellas, Shock, how you doing, man? It's been a while since
I know, man.
You.
It's been a minute. I was excited when we finally got a text from my guy Jared saying, "Hey, it's time to get on back, fellas." And obviously, big time draft time. We've seen all the moves from free agency, and, we've seen some guys added. Now it's time to add maybe a few more pieces to it and get ready for one of the most exciting times. But it's been good, man. Been enjoying some time with the fam and relaxing a little bit, so it's time to get back to work.
Arch, you have been working a little bit. I've seen a couple of your breakdowns and read some articles and stuff. You've been doing a little bit, but otherwise, how's your last couple of months been?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good to kind of recharge the battery. Obviously, the optimism that surrounds Kevin Stefanski and Ian Cunningham and Matt Ryan and everything that goes along there. And been a few adjustments from a personnel standpoint, which we've all been kind of following from afar. I've had a chance to come in and do a few breakdowns for the draft and stuff with some of the players that I think might affect us when we do get ready to pick. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think we'll probably discuss that a little bit. Ian Cunningham in his opening press conference talked about how he loves picks.
Yep.
We only have 5.
Yep.
So how was that? Does that jockey? Do we end up staying at 48, the 48th overall pick or the 16th pick of the second round? Or does Ian start weaving magic and trying to find other picks? I guess we'll talk a little bit about that.
We also know when the binder comes out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
When the binder comes out, we know it's serious.
Make sure nothing falls out, because every piece in that booklet is important, right? Every piece in there.
No doubt.
You're right, Arch. So we will definitely dive into a number of different topics here. But before we get into it,
let's talk. How was your time off, bro? What was it?
You
can't skip your time off, bro. What's up?
Well, I can because I'm running it, and I kind of did. But I appreciate you stopping me. It's been good. It's been good. I was telling our producer, Jared, this is kind of my downtime, if you will, before my kids get really busy with softball
there ain't no
this
downtime
summer.
When you got kids that are going
and
running like
you
are.
Teenagers, there really is no downtime.
I literally talked to him this weekend, and he said he was in LSU. I was like, okay, yeah. Downtime,
that's downtime for me because it wasn't.
By the way,
Rack's
got a couple of big time daughters that play softball. One at LSU, so got one at LSU now.
It's just the story of my life chasing these kids around. But stop me if you haven't heard that one before. I'm sure you all have kids as well. So before we kind of dive into the nuts and bolts of the draft here, as the Atlanta Falcons look to add some more personnel to help them for the 2026 season, I wanted to ask the fellas if they had any draft day memories. If you can remember, Shock, I want to take you back. What was the year that you came out? 2006, I thought the number was. Okay. If you can try to remember the Monday before the draft in 2006, what were you thinking? What were your nerves like? What was the anxiety? What was the anticipation like?
There was a lot of anxiety. The Monday before the draft felt a lot better than the actual day I got. Well, I want to say the days leading up to getting drafted because, of course, every player thinks they're going to be drafted a little bit different than where they are. Unless you're like top 5 guy, then everybody else thinks, I'm probably going to be going here. And then you hear everybody say, you know what, you're probably going to be a day 2 guy. You're probably going to be a day 3. And then you've done interviews. You've gone talk to coaches. You talk to teams. And they're like, hey, if you're there, we going to take you. And you're like, oh, yeah, coach? All right, I can't wait. And then draft day rolls around, and that team is on the clock. And all you can hear is, if you're there, we're going to draft you. And then somebody comes up with the so-and-so pick and it ain't your name, you going.
Well, not only that, DJ, but you didn't get a phone call, right?
Yeah,
You
that's true.
didn't get a phone call.
That is true. That is true. I'll be honest. My I guess funniest story is obviously get drafted by the Falcons, and being a guy from here, you got a lot of people calling you from the state of Georgia. Yeah. So the Falcons called me the first time. I sent them the voicemail. I was like, somebody else calling me from Georgia trying to see if I got drafted. Yeah, I ain't trying to talk to nobody. And then, this seventh round too, so I done watch 47 quarterbacks go before me. So I'm like, I know I'm better than that dude. I know I'm better than that. Come on, this dude right here. So, you know how you go through those emotions. And so I finally answered the second time. And it's Mr. Blank, and Jim Moore was the head coach at the time. And I get to talk to Greg Knapp, who actually spent a lot of time with me during the pre-draft process. So it was actually pretty cool. And then that emotion goes away of being angry and mad because you didn't get drafted. You're like, man, I'm in Atlanta. I'm getting to play with Michael Vick. Yeah. I get to stay in the hometown. And you forget about it. And it's a really, really cool moment. And you just say, you know what? I'm one of the select few that are now in the National Football League, so I was excited after that.
Shock, I was here the time that you got drafted, and when you're on the current team, you're not really in the weeds with what the team is going to do from a draft perspective, right? Yeah. But what was the anticipation for you? What did they say? You were a day one, day two. Did they give you an idea? Were you a mid-round pick? Like, what was the outlook on you going into the draft?
Oh, in my mind, I'm day one all day. But, that didn't happen. But, no, I thought I was probably a latter round guy, probably like 4 through 7 or something like that. I thought it would be a little bit closer to maybe 5th or 6th round,
Okay.
And end up going 7th round. But, a lot of people, was, hey, this guy's only started 1 year. He's played, a lot of football, but he's only got 1 year starting. Yeah, he played well, but was it a fluke?
Yeah.
So it was all those questions, which, was something you take with a grain of salt. You keep going. But at the end of the day, I was excited to be where I am, and it all worked out pretty good.
It's interesting, isn't it, that Shock was the SEC Offensive Player of the Year. He was the Offensive Player of the game in the SEC title game, but only played his senior season. Obviously was in a backup capacity. David Green was a quarterback here at the time, and Shock was that guy waiting for his opportunity. Could have transferred, could have left, and had to sit out a year, but could have gone didn't, stayed loyal, stayed at Georgia. And it paid off because Georgia had a really good player, and they went on and won an SEC championship with Shock at quarterback. But we're talking about, and we'll dive into some of these a little bit in the draft. Ty Simpson is a guy that played 1 year at Alabama. He was a celebrated guy that came in, much like Shock was.
Yep.
Played for his dad in high school, all this kind of stuff. Ty Simpson goes to Alabama, doesn't play, plays his senior year. And so there's all this conversation about is Ty Simpson this or that. He didn't play very much. They're projecting him as a number 1 pick. He didn't win an SEC title. He didn't. But here's a guy, this is the way the mindset has changed. If Shock was coming out today, we might be talking about him being a day 1 guy. That's the difference. It's weird how the dynamic has changed just 20 years later in a guy that's you could compare directly to Shock, right? And probably didn't have as good a year as Shockley did his last season. So just kind of weird how times change.
Not only that, but I sit here with the 2 quarterbacks played the position that when it comes to the draft is the most difficult one to evaluate, the biggest wild card, and it also happens to be the most important position on the team in the National Football League. If you get it right, you're generally in the playoffs every year. Your team's being talked about. You're getting all the extra money, yada, yada, yada. And if it doesn't work out, you're reeling for years, right? So before we move on, Arch, how was your pre-draft process?
Yeah, mine was not as celebrated as Shock's was, or at least anticipated. I didn't have any hometown team I could go to. Playing in a little city in Iowa, a cornfield just across the street from my dormitory room, but had a solid senior year at Iowa State. We didn't go to a bowl game. We weren't in the Big 12 championship game or Big 8 championship game at the time, but had an agent that we all do that is throwing you bones. And they said, okay, well, I've talked to Green Bay. I've talked to these. You're projected somewhere between the 3rd and 6th round, much like Shock was.
Yep.
Now, remember, the draft when I came out was 12 rounds, okay? So imagine my thought process and my facial expression when we get to the 12th round and I ain't getting picked yet. So I've already dog cussed my agent, right? I said, don't call me. I want to hear from you. So I went out and played. I think we played hoop all afternoon or something like that spring when I was at Iowa State. And so I get a call that night. And remember, this is no cell phones. I get a call that night. He says, why haven't you been answering your phone? I said, dude, you told me 5th round. You told me 3rd round.
Yeah.
We're in the 12th round. I don't want to hear from you. He goes, well, there's 5 teams that it called immediately as the draft was over and wanted to sign you. And I needed to know where you wanted to go. This is what's on the table. So he was talking about Atlanta and Dallas and all these kind of teams. I said, man, where's the best place to go where they're not loaded at quarterback? And Atlanta was the place. Steve Bartkowski was a quarterback here at the time. Had a guy named Mike Morosky was the backup. And it was just so happened they were transitioning from a 45-man roster to a larger roster where one of those spots was probably going to be a 3rd quarterback. They didn't have one here in Atlanta. I said, let's go to Atlanta. My dad was born and raised in the South.
Yep.
I was born in the North. I want to go back to the South. Let's go to Atlanta.
Hey.
So I came down to Atlanta and fooled them for several years and was able to make the team.
Kicked Mike's butt down here. Yeah. Took his spot.
It's just crazy, though. You think, like Shock was talking about, you think you're going to go.
Yeah.
You're being told. These are supposed to be people that know, right?
It's a gut punch, man. Yeah.
And no, you're sitting there holding the bag, and my bag didn't have nothing in it. What about you, Rack?
Yeah, as I was coming out, I was primarily a long snapper, so I knew the chances of me getting drafted were likely going to be 7th round or not, right? And I'd had a couple similar conversations with coaches. I remember the Bengals telling me that if you're available in the 7th round, we're going to take you. And just to your point, like I remember in the 7th round, the Bengals pick came up, and I'm like waiting by my phone, and it never rang. And you know what? They drafted a long snapper.
No. No way,
right?
Really?
So it just kind of shows that sometimes, like, even when the coaches tell you things, like, if you're around at X spot, we're going to take you, that doesn't always end up being true. And it's not like they're lying. It's just how the board works out, or maybe they're just trying to, I don't know. I don't know what it is. But I got, like you, Arch, I got phone calls after the draft ended. I had about 5 different options. And I always joke with people because one of the teams that called asking for me to sign with them after the draft, now I will remind you, this was 2000, was the New England Patriots. And we know now what happened with the New England Patriots. But in 2000, the New England Patriots were not what they were throughout the last 2 decades.
That's true.
Right? And so I kind of joke with people that had I decided to sign there. But for me, as a long snapper, I was thinking, outdoors in Boston, like that is not the greatest setup for a long snapper. Yeah. So anyway, I ended up signing with the Atlanta Falcons, and as to your point, fooled them for 6 years.
It's funny though that we all were kind of a similar boat, and you watch the draft. I don't know if you watched the entire draft. I did. After the 5th round, I said I'm not watching this anymore. But
or not to. Though.
But you're watching guys come off the board, and you go, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That dude can't play.
I've seen that.
That guy. I'm like shocked. I'm better than that guy.
Ain't no way.
So it's funny.
No
funny your perspective.
All right, so it's enough about us. I know you guys didn't tune into this, but sometimes it's fun to take a trip back down memory lane and how things ended up transpiring for us. And it's great because I didn't even know those stories about you guys, but I do now. So, Art, you mentioned this. 5 picks for the Atlanta Falcons in this draft. Ian Cunningham said to his staff, this is the last year that we will ever have 5 draft picks.
Never ever.
Because he said, I am all about more swings at the plate. Mm-hmm. And so moving forward, that he says kind of to the larger picture that we're not going to be mortgaging the future for picks because I want to take picks. So we know that they're likely going to have at least 5. Does he end up finding a way to pull some magic to get more than 5? Because when he was with the Bears in 2022, they went into that draft with 6 picks and they ended with 11 that year. So they found a way to stockpile more selections throughout the course of the draft. And I think I read a note that said they did not have a first-round pick in that draft either.
So you saying we're going to have 11 picks? Right? Okay, got you.
There is a chance that Ian Cunningham and crew find a way to get some more swings at the plate. How does that come? We don't know. But let's talk about this, guys. First of all, do you think that might happen, Shock, this weekend? Do you think there's a way that Ian Cunningham tries to find a way to work some magic to turn 5 into maybe 6, 7, 9 plus picks in this draft?
No doubt about it. I absolutely believe there will be more than 5 picks, and the Falcons will have more than 5 draft picks come next week. And you just look at the way Ian has spoke about draft picks. You hear him the way he spoke about the things he wants to do with his roster. And I believe, maybe in the latter rounds, 4, 5, 6, 7, where you start moving them a little bit more. You pick up a couple picks here and there that can add more pieces to your roster. But I think he's all about maximizing his roster, and it has to happen with you getting more picks. So, yeah, there's going to be opportunities, I think, for the Falcons to say, all right, we'll give you, we got a team that's, behind us 3, 4 picks, and we're going to move back and get us 2 more picks in the 6th round. So, all right, now we got 8 picks. So I definitely believe Ian is not going to be sitting with his hands on his butt, wondering what's going to happen next. He's absolutely going to be doing some wheeling and dealing. So I expect that.
Yeah, and some of the lens to that is the draft is there's some guys in the front end of the draft, and obviously we've been hearing the names of the top 15, top 20 guys, and there's some guys that have potential superstar capability in there. But from what I've been able to gather, some of the stuff that I've looked at and listening to a lot of the other people that are doing this, the draft is a draft where there are complementary pieces and or guys that at depth to your roster between 20 or between 2 and 6, like Shock's talking about. So jockeying back from 48 to, let's say you fall back to 60 and you get another 3rd round pick or whatever Ian can work out to do, I think there's a lot of value to what like what Shock was talking about and like what Ian's talking about, is because the depth is more in, guys that are going to fill roles that can kind of add depth to your roster, as opposed to, that guy is a starter on our team at defensive line, or that guy's a starter at safety, or whatever it is.
Yep.
I think there's a bunch of complementary guys that are going to help in the 3rd phase of the game in special teams, be core guys, but also raise the floor. Remember, Ian started talking about raising the floor of that meaning when we have a guy, and inevitably it's a battle of attrition. Guys are going to get hurt in this league. When you play 17 games, guys are going to get banged up and may not be able to play full 17 games. When you plug a guy in, what does that drop your floor to? Mm-hmm. And what he's trying to do and what Shock's talking about when you're talking about the extra picks, it's a depth scenario in the draft where you can add guys that are going to raise that floor up, so when guys do get banged up, we don't have the fall off. And I think that's the key part to keep in mind about the draft.
Well, speaking of raising that floor, what we've seen over the last, call it month and change, is raising the floor from the free agent perspective, right? 17 plus, I think, is the number of guys that have been signed as free agents, and a lot of them have been in the veteran, prove-it, 1-year deals, guys that are trying to continue their career, maybe playing for a contract, guys that have done some really good things in the league that are trying to provide some depth and address some things that guys they likely may not be able to in the draft, because as it starts, they sit with only 5 picks. But with that being said, we know that Ian Cunningham, his mantra from where he's been previously with Baltimore, Philadelphia, Chicago, he's a BPA guy, blessed player available, okay? So for those of you that think that, their needs are X, Y, and Z, and they're going to draft this player because this is one of their needs, that's not necessarily how he looks at it. He is more of a best player available type guy. Now, per NFL.com, they have the Atlanta Falcons needs as, and I'll just state them out, wide receiver, defensive line, cornerback, edge, and linebacker. First, big picture, Shock, you agree with that list? Do you think those are 5 position groups that Atlanta is likely going to attack?
Yeah, for sure. I think those are all positions that absolutely could benefit from obviously some more talent. And, yeah, we brought in some guys at the receiver spot who, like you mentioned, are on prove-it deals, come in, they've been there, have done it. We've seen a guy like Olamide Zaccheaus have a pretty good career and go on elsewhere and, be productive. So it's good to have those kind of guys in here. I know we just went out and, got Mason Smith up front on the D-line. But there's still some depth pieces. There's still some guys that I think could add tremendous value and give you a quote-unquote winning edge right away. So, yeah, corner, a spot that we've talked about the last few years. obviously went and signed Mike Hughes a year or two ago, whatever, and you felt like, all right, that's a spot where they felt really good about it. But here we are. We have a brand new, group of guys who are in here coaching. And to be honest, Mike Hughes wasn't their guy. So you never know if coming in and say, okay, well, Mike Hughes, he's a good player, but maybe he's not the guy we see fit for that. Now, I'm not saying this is what they're saying. Obviously, I haven't heard that at all. But this is another scenario where you look at, okay, how can we improve this roster the best way we see going forward? And there are a lot of guys in this draft in those particular position groups that I feel could come in right away and say, hey, you know what? These guys bring instant value. These guys bring something that's a little bit different than what we've seen already. So, yeah, those are position groups that I feel like are absolutely ones that can be looked at as possible needs for the squad.
You think this is right on, Arch? You think it's maybe less than this, or do you think there's another position group that you think they might target on top of it?
Well, the only one that would probably add to the mix is the offensive line. I mean, obviously the Caleb McGarry news did not catch the team off guard. Maybe the timing of it was a little bit off. I think they had an idea that something was going on there. Obviously, Elijah Wilkinson is not here anymore. So now when you look at the depth at the offensive line, especially at the tackle position, you've got some guys that, kind of were that stopgap guy. And so when you start talking about raising the floor, that's not raising the floor. So do you have to attack that area? So Juwan Taylor being signed as a guy that's played at this level, was a high draft pick when he came out, has had a little bit of injury, some bug with him a little bit, but looks like he's going to be a solid guy to be able to plug in, but is that an area of attack? But if I were to list them, I think D-line is number 1 in my book.
Okay.
Corner is number 2. And I would put linebacker at 3. The loss of Caden Ellis, maybe see uncertainties there. Is there a guy you can add that could plug in next to Divine Diablo and play? There's some really good ones that I think are going to be available in the second round that are ball hawks. And then I would put wide receiver at 4 for me. I think that like with Shock, with Dotson coming in, with Zacchaeus coming in, with some of the guys you think are going to take that next step that were part of your practice squad, you got some pretty good players that I think kind of been waiting in the wings for their opportunity that were really good players at the college level. I think there's a chance for those guys to surge forward as well. So, but it doesn't mean you don't add one.
Sure. Now, you mentioned defensive line, and Shock, you talked about the trade. Over the last few days, Mason Smith was added to this roster, traded for Rook Orororo. A lot of people think that that's a very similar type, same draft, same position group and everything, but as this new coaching staff and this personnel department are kind of moving things around, it's probably a fit thing, right? They want to find something that fits a role a little bit better with what they're doing. So that's one of the new additions coming in at the defensive line spot. So what I wanted to ask you guys is let's start getting into some potential players. Let's get into some potential players, some potential position groups. Here's the problem. Last year, fellas, we were sitting here and the Falcons had a pick, and there was a lot easier guys that you could slot in here. Arch, as you mentioned, there's probably going to be 47 guys come off the board before the Atlanta Falcons get their first selection. So this is a little bit more difficult. Yes, you can kind of slot into who needs what, and these guys should be available. But I'm going to start with you here, Arch. Okay. Are you going to go and highlight a position group, or do you got a couple players that you're thinking at that 48 spot would be prime for the taking for Atlanta? Yeah,
I think there's a couple guys that stick out for me, guys, and I think that I'm going to go 2 defensive players.
Okay.
A couple. There's some really. I think there's going to be some really pretty interesting defensive tackles sitting at in that mid-4th or mid-second round range.
Okay.
A guy, and ironically enough, there's 3 guys here. 2 of them come from Texas Tech's defense.
Okay.
I think Lee Hunter, the defensive tackle, 6'3", 320 pounds-ish, a guy that's where did we struggle? I think we were 24th in the league against the run last year. Okay, so you got after the pass for 57 sacks at a club record. You took the football away, 23 times. So you're doing some of the things that help you become a good defense, but one of those is to force them in passing situations and not in manageable third downs.
Yep.
We didn't do a good enough job with that, and some of it had to do with stopping the run. That's when I kind of lean into. Then you stack on top the fact that David Onyemata is gone, one of your veteran guys in the interior. Now, you have a couple of good guys coming back, certainly. Brandon Dorlus coming back off for a monster year, but his prowess was more cut getting after the passer, right? 8.5 sacks. Where do we have some guys in there that can provide some run plugging ability? Lee Hunter is a guy that jumps off the table. I think he's a second-round pick. He might even go late first round, but I think he could potentially be available. Another guy that I think might be available a little bit later, and I'm going to throw the Iowa State guy in there. The big citrus.
Orange.
The big citrus.
Big orange.
First of all, great nickname. I love that. I'm going to be able to use that on the radio. But Dominic Orange is a guy that's a run plugger, 6'3", 6'2 and a half, 325 pounds. Again, kind of that fulfilling that ability to blow up double teams, those kind of things, maybe even get penetration, blow up gap scheme type stuff. And then I'll go Jacob Rodriguez, the linebacker.
Okay.
Those are the three guys that I would look at.
Machine.
He's a tackling machine. He's a better athlete than you think he is. He's a football player, and the dude has a nose for the football.
Yep.
I mean, the guy can get the ball out, and that's the part that I love about him. So those are three guys that kind of jump off the table at me maybe in that second, maybe early third round.
Shock, stop me if you've heard this one before, but in order to be successful in the game of football at any level that you play, I don't care, high school, college, NFL, you got to be able to run the football.
Yeah.
You got to be able to stop the run.
For sure.
Like, how many times have we heard that as players as keys to the game? We got to be able to establish the run. We got to be able to stop the run. And to your point, Arch, Falcons were 24th in rush defense last year, so I think that is an area that they're going to keep an eye out if that best player available happens to be an interior defensive lineman. Where do you go here, Sean?
It's laughable, man. It's laughable. Rack, look at the first.
You think I can read your hand?
Yes,
Okay,
the first two names on my list right there.
Prospects match. It says
D-line and
Lee Hunter.
Who's my second guy?
It says Dominic Orange.
I mean, that's why I say it's laughable. The amount that me and Arch think alike.
You go with your boy. You go with your boy.
I know. No. He was my third guy. And a lot of people say, yeah, you're Homer in this one, but I got a chance to be around this kid for the last 3 or 4 years. And the kid I'm talking about obviously is Christian Miller from UGA. And the things I saw in him within, this program spoke volumes. And set the production stuff aside. This is a guy you want on your team. This is a guy you want in your room. This is a guy you want on your team. And he was one of those guys that Kirby Smart leaned on when it comes to who are my leaders on my team. Yep. He's the guy that when they walk in the locker room, when they first get to a stadium, before anybody puts their bags down, they're standing waiting to hear what he has to say before he dismisses him. That's the kind of leader you have off the field and in the locker room. And then you get into what he can do. You're talking about having a quick first step, being able to get upfield, has the ability to push the pocket, has the ability to be really stout in the run game. And the dude wants it. The dude is as hungry as you can be to play this game. And it's a guy who had to sit, behind Jalen Carter, had to sit behind Jordan Davis. So you're talking about learning from guys who are at the next level right now, making millions and millions of dollars because of their play. And the one thing I talked to him at his pro day and asked him about, what if you had the opportunity to be drafted by the hometown team? Because he's from right here in the state of Georgia. And he said, you could just see the excitement in his face about the possibility to be able to represent this logo and then have the opportunity to say, he said, man, my grandma would fall out if I played for the Falcons. And you talking about having somebody who it's a little bit deeper than them just to be drafted. It's a little bit deeper than say, hey, I'm playing National Football League. They got so many people who are rooting for him. It's just such a great kid, man. But I think he would fit perfectly as well within what they want to do here at the Georgia.
Shock, I understand that you went to Georgia, but I don't even think you need to put the preface out there anymore about Georgia players, because I think everybody in the nation understands what happens when Georgia players go to the National Football League now. I mean, it is widely known, okay, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
No question.
But overall, that Kirby Smart and his staff coaches and prepares people arguably differently than anybody else in the in college football now. Yeah. So you can sit there and say, yes, I played at Georgia and I'm going to talk about this guy as well, but there's a reason why Georgia players are scattered all over draft boards, because they are prepared to play at the next level.
It's a reason this organization sent, 20, 30 people to that 100%. Pro day? I mean,
they were full.
They were in groves there.
One of the reasons why Tyndale and Ojolari are on this team, too. When those two guys became available, two former Georgia players came available, you went and got them. Now, we should, maybe take a slap in the side of the head for not taken take a look at him earlier. But hey, they came
They're
this
here
way.
now.
And so I agree with you guys. Christian Miller, in anybody that comes out of Georgia, especially like you said, Rack, defensively, they are coached to the highest possible level from a technique standpoint, from a want-to standpoint, and let's go hunt on defense. That's who they are.
Yes. So for sake of variety, because as I prepared for a couple of guys, the position groups I focused on was corner, was edge, and was wide receiver. And so since you guys talked about defense, I'm going to go with the wide receiver position. And I'm going to talk about some guys that there's a chance could be there at 2. All right, let's talk about wide receiver position currently for the Falcons. You mentioned it already. They brought in Olamide Zaccheaus, guy that formerly played for this franchise, Jahan Dotson to go along with Drake London. And we know that Kyle Pitts, obviously he's going to be here on the franchise tag, potentially going to get extended later. And then Bijan Robinson is almost like another wide receiver in and of himself. Okay, so that's kind of what we think as of right now are going to be your top receiving targets. But I still think this is a team that needs somebody. Guys, think about last year when Drake London went down. Like, they lost a huge piece of this offensive puzzle when he got banged up. Yeah. And I just think that this organization needs to find the next guy who strikes fear in the eyes of a defense. Yeah. Whether that's because they're a technician and they find ways to get themselves open, I think. Now, listen, I'm going to throw this name out. He is not going to be available in the second round, but a talent like Jackson Smith-Njigba and how he gets himself open, okay? Or a burner that can legitimately take the top off a defense and threaten other safeties, or a guy that's in space that just causes nightmares, okay? So a couple of guys that I feel like fit that mold. Number one will be Chris Brazzell from Tennessee.
Yeah,
all right, 6'4", tall guy. His biggest asset is his ability to stretch the defense and put pressure on safeties. Get down the field, and he has made a habit of making some big-time catches throughout his career at Tennessee. So he's a guy to keep an eye on. Jeremy Bernard, he's the technician. Not as big, maybe not as fast, but he is the guy that knows how to use his body, knows how to use the field, and understands offense to get himself open, and he showed that over and over from Ty Simpson at Alabama, okay? Then there's Antonio Williams. He's been the leading wide receiver at Clemson the last couple of years. I know Clemson's taken a couple of steps back in the national stage over the last couple of years, but this is a guy that's been very consistent for him. 6 foot, he can play inside and outside, very accomplished wide receiver. But the last guy that I'm going to talk about, and yes, I'm going back to Georgia, because I told you this during the season last year. Is Zachariah Branch, I think, is one of the most electric players in this draft. Yeah. What he does, like, there was a couple times I texted you last year doing Georgia games that when he gets the ball in his hands, his acceleration from the moment he gets it to when he starts breaking through the next level of the defense, I think it's like immediately catches your attention. Yeah. And he's just got another gear, guys, that I just don't think everybody has. His shiftiness, his ability to get himself open, the damage that he can do in space. And by the way, did the Falcons have some issues in special teams in returning last year?
No doubt.
This guy is an electric returner. Yeah. So let's just say that during training camp, Zachariah Branch is here, doesn't quite do enough to really break the top 3 in the depth chart. Maybe he's sitting at number 4. I'm okay with him being our returner. Yeah. That would work.
No question.
So he's another guy. He's undersized, yes, but think about some of the guys in the NFL that have maybe been undersized a little bit, but they are so shifty. Their ability to get themselves free in space is unlike any other, and that's a guy that I just feel like has been missing in this offense. Yeah. So to me, if Zachariah Branch is there and that's best player available, because remember, folks, it doesn't matter who you and us three, who the pundits think is the best player. It only matters the people in the draft room, and I'm pointing this direction because it's over there, who they think is the best player available. But that's 4 wide receivers that I thought maybe in that second round 48 range that could potentially provide some value to it.
I mean, those solid. I mean, those are all 4 guys I had on my list as well. And I mean, you were spot on with everything you talked about. Nothing really to add to it. You talking about all guys who could come in here and add something different and be a little bit different than what they already have. So, yeah, you spot on with those, right?
Yeah, a couple of guys that maybe just to add to Rack's group, Deshaun Stribling, the kid out of Ole Miss, can flat run. He's a big kid that can take – Georgia knows about him.
He smoked
kid trap.
He smoked us.
Took it to the house. Yeah, he ran like 4.37 at the combine, has a 36-inch vert. You talked about Branch. If you go to AtlantaFalcons.com, there's so much information there, but I broke down the wide receivers, and one of them was Zachariah Branch, one of them was Chris Brazzell as well.
Yep.
But Branch doesn't get enough credit. Again, schooled well at Georgia, even though he was on the offensive side of the football. If you go back and look at him in his route running, he's a better route runner. The jet sweeps, and yes, he can catch screens and all that kind of stuff. Go look at him do some of the stuff in the red zone where they stack him in behind a bigger receiver. Kobe Young or whoever those guys come off the ball, kind of run interference for him, and he makes you think he's going inside, and then all of a sudden he snaps it back outside down in the red zone. You can't stay with him because of the quickness and stuff. Another guy that's interesting to me is Chris Bell out of Louisville. Tore his knee up late in the year. Monster run after the catch guy. 6'2", 220. Yeah. He's a guy that can do a lot of stuff with the ball in his hands, and also prior to the injury, and you don't know where he's going to be. He may slide back to where you kind of steal him a little bit out of Louisville. So there's some good people at that pick. I think those are great selections.
Oddly enough, we talked about probably 6 wide receivers there, and Ian Cunningham feels like this draft has depth at corner, safety, and defensive end, and we just talked about some depth at the wide receiver position. So there are a lot of really good options. But fellas, we talked about some players, but Arch, for this organization, again, starting with 5 picks, we don't know what it's going to turn into, but how do you evaluate whether or not this team, Ian Cunningham, the personnel department, coaching staff, is successful after this 2026 draft?
Well, I mean, obviously we're not going to know anything until you actually put the helmet on and go hit people.
Right.
But I think his overall idea of raising the floor, knowing that there's injuries and who do we plug in if somebody goes down, and bolstering all the roster, all the spots, all the rooms. Are the rooms better on paper than they were when he got? Already, I think they're that way.
Yep.
Now, if you can add 5 picks, or as Shock says, he thinks maybe they're going to end up with maybe 7, 8 picks based on the jockeying that he potentially could do, that adds even more depth to some of those rooms. All of a sudden, you start thinking of cups being full of water, and all of a sudden you're raising them up in different areas. So I think that ultimately you're going to judge it based on how it plays out. But we're going to have to wait for the season to play out as to how some of these moves from a free agent standpoint and also from a draft standpoint play out. But think about what they're doing too you got to have that short term. We talked about this before. You got to have that short term view. What are we going to do right now? What are we going to do to win now? But you also have to look down the road. So the way they're structuring some of these deals with these guys, 1-year deals, you talked about it, Shock, signing some of these guys, you're positioning yourself from a salary cap standpoint to get back in the mix for stuff that you want potentially down the road. I think there's a lot of different ways to look at, yes, depth at this position, but also depth of a football team, also depth of a salary cap. There's a lot going on.
You guys, you think about just go back a year, right? Like, yeah, that's the trade is the reason why Atlanta does not have a first-round pick this year. But James Pierce Jr. had a monster year. Yeah. Jalen Walker was an everyday rotational player that was really strong, and I think everybody would agree he's got such a bright future for this team. Billy Bowman was balling before he got hurt. And we know Xavier Watts already after his first year, turned into being probably one of the more promising young safeties in the National Football League. So there was some really good talent. And like you said, Arch, you can't really evaluate till you see what these guys do on a field, because at the end of the day, this is a production league. You are based on whether or not you produce, especially at the position that you are brought in to do. Pass rush. Do you get after the passer? Do you get the quarterback down on the ground? I think that happened last year. As a defensive back, as a safety, do you get involved in the run game, and do you patrol the back end and take the football away? Xavier Watts did that. Billy Bowman was doing that before he ended up getting hurt. So to you, Shock, how do you evaluate whether or not this draft is successful for Atlanta?
I think I push it forward to training camp, and I push it forward to the spot of when you start thinking about who's going to make this roster. And for me, it's similar to what Arch talked about with the depth, but then there's also that time in training camp where we get in here and we say, man, we got 9 receivers. Who are we going to get rid of?
Yeah.
So my mind frame goes into the competition that you have at all those particular positions. You say, you know what, man? It sure would be hard to cut this guy. I don't want this guy to go somewhere else. And you look around and you say, we have a lot of really good depth. We got a lot of good competition going on at every spot. Think about what we already did at quarterback. You get the number 8 overall pick, and then you bring in another guy who is obviously a top 10 pick who's played really well in the league. You got extreme competition at the best position in football that you need for your team to be successful.
Yep.
And I think that's Ian Cunningham. I think that's Matt Ryan. I think that's, Kevin Stefanski setting the stage that, guess what? We're going to compete around here. We're going to bring in the best, and we're going to play the best. So I think I push mine forward and say, hey, when we get in a training camp and we look at some of these draft picks or we look at some of these guys we bought in free agency, and you say, you know what, man, it's going to be tough to figure out who's going to be on this 53. It's going to be tough to figure out who's going to be that 6th receiver. It's going to be tough to see who's going to be that 4th linebacker. Like, all that kind of stuff I think goes into how this draft looks. Because, like I said, we're not going to know. You're going to get these draft picks. Everything's going to look good. They're going to show the highlights. You're going to be like, man, I can see him playing for the Falcons until we see him out here and see how they fare. So it's going to be fun to watch, and it's fun to see how they all mend all these pieces together. And then we get to that point where we say, all right, we got to make a decision on this guy. How many D tackles we going to take? Ooh, what's the name at that corner spot who we drafted? Oh, he's making it real hard on him right now.
Yeah.
So I think that's where my mind goes when it comes to, okay, what kind of draft was this?
Listen, this is the time when, a guy like Ian Cunningham is in here, and this is when you evaluate your personnel department. Because when you don't have a first-round pick, I mean, guys, it's easy to get a game-changing type player in the first round, right?
Yeah.
They're super talented.
Yeah.
But this is where the best personnel departments in the National Football League find the players in rounds 4, 5, and 6, 7 that turn out to be starters, that turn out to be difference makers, potentially Pro Bowlers,
Round 12,
and maybe even
round 12
Hall of Famers.
Come on.
That'd be an FA at this point.
All right, fellas, before we wrap this thing up, I'm putting y'all on the spot. Shock.
Whoa.
All right, 48, the pick. All right?
Yeah.
I'm going to have you tell us who the Atlanta Falcons are picking, or you might say they're not picking there. But you are on the clock at 48. Tell the viewing and listening America who the Atlanta Falcons are going to select with their first pick.
Who you got, Shock?
With the 48th pick, the Falcons move back 4 spots.
4
spots.
Exact number.
Get another draft pick, and they end up getting defensive back Chris Johnson out of San Diego State.
Good one.
Okay.
Good one.
And you're talking about a guy, 6 foot,
one.
193, 4'4". And I was going through this guy and looking at his film, looking at his numbers, and this guy has excelled every single year that he's played. Dude's played a lot of ball, over 1,000 snaps at corner, ball hawk his last few years. An extremely dangerous player on that other side, can play inside, can play outside. He is one of those kind of guys that can come in here right away and say, you know what? Line him up and let's go.
Woo! I like that. And think about, what Shock mentioned, and you mentioned as well. Billy Bowman, let's say Billy Bowman, we hope Billy's ready to go. Obviously, the Achilles injury, we'll see how that plays out, But Billy, like you said, was balling. Billy was balling, no question about it. But, okay, what do you do there? D. Alford's gone,
Right.
So what are you doing at the nickel
Alford,
spot? So now all of a sudden, Chris Johnson, you take Chris Johnson, and he got me an extra pick. He got me an extra pick. Wow, GM over here. So I got an extra pick, and I got Chris Johnson. So now I can put Chris Johnson outside. I might even be able to slide Mike Hughes inside. Let him play the nickel spot maybe.
Yep.
Or, as you mentioned, Chris can play inside. He's a longer guy, got longer arms, can do some damage on the inside. So love the pick. Love the
I mean,
pick.
guys, we've been talking about corner now for the last couple of years, and even though A.J. Terrell got his contract extension, I think everybody is kind of waiting for this organization to get the next lockdown corner like you see happen around the National Football League. Arch, all right, what's your pick? What's happening at 48?
I can't wait for this.
Happening at 48.
I don't know. I can drop any new knowledge on you and stuff like that. Wow, I've got guys. Listen, I've got a bunch of guys here. I like the corner spot.
Yeah.
There's a guy I really like there. But I'm gonna stay with what I originally said. Defensive tackle position.
I'm with you.
I'm gonna keep the big fella in the interior. Now you talk about Christian Miller. We talk about Lee Hunter. There's Caleb Banks, who has a little bit of injury issue coming out of Florida, but still 6'6", 335 pounds. The big citrus might be available. I'm gonna stay in the defensive line, guys. I'm gonna stay boring here, and I'm gonna get Lee Hunter. That's a guy that can get up the field, and he's one of those guys that I evaluated in my defensive tackle. Plays a great pad level. He's violent. He's got violent hands. Gets off blocks. He destroyed people at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah,
I mean, the bull rushes. He was driving guys right into the back. Now he's not a great pass rusher. But if you can collapse the pocket, which you're looking for from those interior guys, and you can defend the run, then he pays huge dividends. So I'm going to go Lee Hunter out of Texas Tech, 6'4", 6'3.5", 320 pounds. Played 52 games. That's another thing that sticks out about him is he lines up for you. What do we talk about with Grady Jarrett?
Yep.
Grady Jarrett was a 5th-round draft pick, but what did you do every Sunday? Grady was going to line up and play for you. He was going to play at a high level. I think that's what this kind of guy is.
Like that.
Love it. All right, so we got corner, we got defensive line. All right. I got a couple of other corners that I wanted to make sure I mentioned. I got a couple other corners I wanted to make sure I mentioned.
Yeah.
That might be available is the D'Angelo Pons kid is intriguing out of Indiana.
Great player. Yeah.
You're talking about a shorter kid at 5'8", but this dude is like everywhere. Plays with that moxie. Came with Signetti from James Madison. Won a national championship. Knows what it's like to raise your level of play. Expectation. Play up here all day long. I like a guy that's a champion. What
did he do? One of the second or third play of the game at the Peach Bowl? Pick 6 against Oregon to set the table.
He got them ball skills. Okay,
fair play to the crib.
Another guy that's intriguing to me. I saw him a number of times throughout his career is Davison Igbinosun from Ohio State. He's another guy that's got some length to him. So you want a corner that they always say. That length eats up space, right? 6'2", 190 pounds, played at the Ohio State program, really high expectations. Think about the guys that he's going up just in practice every single day. Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate. He's just going up against these guys in practice, okay? I think he brings something to the table, and then we go back to UGA. And Dalen Everett, I think, is another guy.
Guy made plays.
Guy made
the
plays.
Biggest games for sure.
Coached hardest as you can imagine, and I think he's going to be a guy that's another really good pro.
Can I throw one more corner in there?
Yes, you can.
Okay, Keontae Scott at the U. Okay, ran his pro day, ran 4.33 at his pro day. But what you when you put Keontae Scott on tape, dude plays corner, but he slides inside and plays that nickel spot, almost like a starter at nickel for them in their nickel package, and he can come off the edge. He had like 13 tackles for loss as a corner playing in that slot area, so he's one of the guys I like as well.
Like that.
For my pick,
here we go.
Who you going with?
Who we got?
I am in Shock's camp. I think this is the most marketable selection that the Falcons have that they're going to drop back.
Okay.
Because of all the names that we talked about, some other team is going to want to move up to pick somebody that they're in love with.
Yeah. What are we doing, Rack?
So I think they drop back.
Okay.
They get a couple picks. And some guy named Zachariah Branch falls into their lap. And I just think the versatility, the speed, the quickness, the playmaking ability. Shock, I remember a game this year that I called of Georgia that at halftime, I said one of the keys to the game coming out of the second half is they had to get more touches for Zachariah Branch. I just start thinking about the creativity of motioning Bijan Robinson out and stacking him with Branch, or motioning Branch back in the backfield and having those two guys, and how are you going to slow down the quickness with play fake to one, dump off to the outside of the other? I just start thinking about the creativity that you bring. If he turns into being an effective pro like I think he can be, I think you've got somebody that is a playmaker, and you arguably have a Pro Bowl returner as well. And I'm a special teams guy, so I'm thinking about value. I'm thinking about this guy's our slot receiver, and he is our kickoff returner, and he is going to help us win football games.
All I'm saying,
dropping back, extra picks, Zachariah Branch.
Okay, real quickly on that. Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
Question. If you can't go back, let's say you can't do what you guys are talking about and slide to 60, and all of a sudden I got another third-round pick, and I get Branch at 60 or something along those lines. What happens if you can't do that and you're still sitting at 48 and you can't really get anybody to do? Are you going to take Branch? Would you take Branch at 48 without the extra picks?
Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
Good. Okay,
I'm same way.
Okay.
Okay, absolutely.
Yes.
Take the same guy. I think they can go there.
You picked who?
I picked Chris Johnson, San Diego State
Johnson,
corner.
San Diego State.
Lee Hunter.
Lee Hunter, Texas Tech. Zachariah Branch, University of Georgia. Hey, tell us who you're picking.
Yeah.
Put it in the comments.
Come on.
48th pick. Who are you picking? Is it a trade? Is it a wide receiver? Is it a corner? Is it a defensive lineman? Is it something else? You are the GM for the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T. Comment and tell us who you're picking. And by the way, make sure that you continue to watch throughout the week because our official predictions will be released on Wednesday morning as us and everybody else in the building. Well, not everybody else in the building because Ian Cunningham is not going to be part of that, okay? We are going to take our stab at who the Atlanta Falcons are going to be picking with their first pick of the 2026 draft. So make sure you pay attention to all of our channels here for the Atlanta Falcons to get everybody else's selections. Maybe it'll be more like the three of us here.
For sure.
All right? Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. We're glad to be back. As you can see, we had a little bit of fun. We had a little bit of excitement. That's DJ Shockley. That's Dave Archer. I'm Derek Rackley. Thanks so much for joining us here. It's draft week, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's go.
2026 from Pittsburgh coming up Thursday night. This is the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T. More reinforcements coming this week. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Yeah.